Let's start at the very beginning of a story that sounds like a Hollywood thriller, but is actually an ancient blueprint for your life. Imagine a teenager named Joseph. He's young, he's talented, and he's clearly his father's favorite. His father, Isaac, gives him this incredible multicolored coat, a technicolor dream in a world of dusty browns. But Joseph has something even more valuable. He has visions. He dreams that he's destined for greatness, that even his own family will one day look up to him. Now, we've all been there, right? You have a big idea, a new business plan, or a dream for your family, and you're excited. You want to share it. But when Joseph shared his dreams, he didn't get high fives. He got targets on his back. His brothers didn't see a leader, they saw a threat to their own status. This is the micro level of life we all face. The jealousy, the toxic co-workers, the family members who don't want to see you fly. They saw the coat, but they hated the man inside it. One day, the resentment boiled over. The brothers saw Joseph coming across the fields, and their hearts turned to stone. They stripped him of his identity. They literally tore that coat off his back, and they threw him into a dry, lightless pit. Take a second and put yourself in that hole. The walls are rough, the air is thin, and the only sound you hear is the laughter of the people who were supposed to protect you. They sat just a few yards away, having lunch while Joseph pleaded for his life. Eventually, they decided that killing him wasn't enough. They wanted to profit from his misery. They sold him to a passing caravan of slave traders for 20 pieces of silver. Think about the psychological trauma. To his brothers, he was a nuisance. To the traders, he was just cargo. To Joseph, his life was over before it even started. He was being dragged in chains toward Egypt, a place where he was a nobody, a stranger, a slave. Back at the camp, the brothers had to cover their tracks. They took that beautiful coat, dipped it in the blood of a goat and brought it to their father, Isaac. They didn't say, "We killed him." They just said, "Look what we found." It was a masterpiece of manipulation. Isaac saw the blood and his heart shattered. For the next 20 years, let that sink in, 2 decades, Isaac lived in a state of deep, crushing depression. He refused to be comforted. He stayed in his grief, convinced that a wild beast had torn his son to pieces. From the micro perspective of Isaac's tent, God had abandoned him. The world was cruel, and there was no reason for the pain. But while Isaac was mourning, the divine blueprint was already building a palace in Egypt. The animal that attacked Joseph wasn't a beast. It was the destiny that was pulling him toward his purpose. The blood on the coat was a lie, but the journey it started was the ultimate truth. If you're starting to see how your own pits might be part of a bigger plan, make sure you follow the Solomon's Treasury channel. We're here to help you unlock the wealth of wisdom hidden in your struggles. Joseph arrives in Egypt and is sold to Potiphar, the captain of the Pharaoh's guard. Now this is where most people would have given up. If you're sold into slavery after being a prince at home, the natural reaction is bitterness. But Joseph understood a secret of the treasury. Your attitude is your only real currency. He didn't sit in the corner and pout. He decided to be the most excellent, most organized, and most trustworthy servant in all of Egypt. He worked as if the divine blueprint itself was his boss. Before long, Potiphar noticed that everything Joseph touched turned to gold. The gardens grew better, the accounts were perfect, and the house had a peace it never had before. Potiphar eventually handed the keys of his entire estate to Joseph. Joseph was winning in a place where he was supposed to be losing. This is the first rule of the blueprint. If you can't change your situation yet, change the energy you bring to it. Just when life started to feel stable again, the micro world threw another curveball. Potiphar's wife noticed how handsome and successful Joseph was. She didn't just ask him to compromise his values, she demanded it. Day after day, she pursued him. Joseph was young, far from home, and arguably had earned a little fun after everything he'd been through. But he stood his ground. He said, "How can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" He chose his soul over his skin. But in the short term, integrity cost him everything. When he refused her one last time, she grabbed his cloak, screamed, and framed him for a crime he didn't commit. Potiphar, blinded by rage and embarrassment, threw Joseph into the royal prison. It's the ultimate unfair moment. You do the right thing, you stay loyal, you keep your heart clean, and you end up in a dungeon. Imagine the damp, cold walls of an Egyptian prison. This wasn't a modern jail. This was a hole for the king's prisoners. But look at Joseph's response. He didn't lose his vibe. Even in chains, his light was so bright that the warden of the prison noticed it. Instead of treating Joseph like a criminal, the warden put him in charge of all the other prisoners. Joseph became the manager of the dungeon. This is a massive piece of the blueprint. Joseph was being trained to manage people at their absolute worst. He was learning how to handle the desperate, the angry, and the broken. He was becoming a psychologist and an administrator in the hardest school on earth. The micro view said he was a failure. The macro blueprint knew he was in an executive training program for the highest office in the land. Have you ever felt like life reset you back to zero just when you were starting to win? How did you keep your head up during that reset? I want to hear your story in the comments. While running the prison, Joseph meets two of Pharaoh's top officials, the chief butler and the chief baker. They both have these intense, symbolic dreams that they can't understand. Joseph, instead of being consumed by his own problems, notices their sadness. He asks them, "Why are your faces so downcast today?" He listens to them. He uses his gift to interpret their dreams. He tells the butler he'll be back in the palace in 3 days. He tells the baker, well, it wasn't good news for him. Joseph makes one simple request to the butler. When you're back in the palace, standing next to the king, please remember me. Tell him I'm innocent. The butler gets released, just like Joseph said. And then, nothing happens. 1 day passes, a week, a month, a year. In fact, 2 whole years pass by. That's 730 days of Joseph waking up in a cell, listening for a knock on the door that never comes. Can you imagine the mental toll? To know you helped someone, to know you're innocent, and to feel completely forgotten by the world. But in the divine blueprint, a delay is not a denial. If Joseph had been released the day the butler left, he probably would have just tried to walk back to Israel. He would have missed his destiny. He had to be reserved in that prison until the exact moment when the king of the world had a problem that only Joseph's specific training could solve. Finally, the timing is perfect. Pharaoh has a nightmare: 7 fat cows eaten by 7 skinny cows, then 7 healthy ears of grain eaten by 7 shriveled ones. The king is terrified. He calls the experts, the scientists, and the wise men of Egypt, and they are all stumped. This is the moment the forgotten Joseph is finally remembered. The butler speaks up, and Joseph is rushed out of the dungeon. They shave him. They dress him in royal clothes, and he stands before Pharaoh. He doesn't look like a prisoner. He looks like the answer. This is the Treasury secret. The world only looks for you when its own wisdom fails. Joseph wasn't just ready. He was seasoned by the wait. Are you in a waiting room right now? If you knew that this delay was actually protecting you for a bigger moment, how would you spend your time today? Let's talk about it below. Joseph stands before Pharaoh and doesn't take the credit. He says, God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. He explains the dream, 7 years of too much, followed by 7 years of nothing. But he doesn't just give the prophecy, he gives the solution. He tells Pharaoh to appoint a wise man to store 20% of the food during the good years. He creates the first global economic reserve. Pharaoh is so blown away by this former prisoner's wisdom that he says, "There is no one as discerning and wise as you." He takes off his own signet ring and puts it on Joseph's finger. In a single afternoon, Joseph goes from inmate to prime minister. For the next 7 years, Joseph is the busiest man in the world. He's traveling the country, overseeing the building of thousands of massive warehouses. He's collecting and storing millions of tons of grain. He is literally building a treasury that will save the human race. While the rest of the world was likely living it up during the good years, Joseph was working the blueprint. He was focused on the macro needs of the future. He was turning his prison management skills into nation management skills. He was no longer the boy in the pit. He was the man who held the keys to the world's survival. When the famine finally hits, it's brutal. It's a micro-tragedy for millions of families who have no food. But because of Joseph's blueprint, Egypt is the only place with hope. People from every nation start trekking to Egypt to buy grain. And guess who shows up? The brothers. The same 10 men who threw him in a pit 20 years ago are now standing in line, starving, waiting to buy bread from a man they don't recognize. They bow down to him, foreheads in the dust, fulfilling the very dream they tried to kill. Joseph has the power to destroy them, to starve them, or to put them in the same pit they put him in. If your enemies were suddenly dependent on you for their survival, what would be your first reaction? Let's get deep in the comment section. Joseph doesn't reveal himself immediately. He plays it cool. He tests them. He wants to know if they've changed. He accuses them of being spies and demands they bring their youngest brother Benjamin to Egypt. He watches as they struggle with their guilt, hearing them whisper to each other, "This is happening to us because of what we did to Joseph." He sees that the blueprint hasn't just been working on him. It's been working on them too. Finally, when he sees Judah, the brother who suggested selling him, offer to take Benjamin's place as a slave so their father wouldn't die of grief, Joseph knows the transformation is complete. Joseph can't hold it back any longer. He sends everyone out of the room and breaks down in tears. He cries so loudly that the people in the palace can hear him. He says in Hebrew, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" The brothers are paralyzed. They are waiting for the hammer to fall. They expect the micro-revenge that most humans would take. But Joseph looks at them and says the most powerful words in the whole story. "Do not be angry with yourselves. It wasn't you who sent me here. It was God." He realized that they were just delivery drivers for his destiny. They thought they were doing evil, but the blueprint was using them for a global rescue mission. Joseph tells them to go get their father and bring him to Egypt. Imagine the moment Isaac, after 20 years of mourning, hears the news. Joseph is alive, and he is the Lord of Egypt. Isaac's spirit, which had been dead for 2 decades, finally came back to life. They moved to the best land in Egypt, the land of Goshen. The blueprint didn't just save Joseph, it saved the entire family line. It turned a betrayal into a bridge. It turned a pit into a palace. It healed the micro pain of a broken family by giving them a macro purpose in the history of the world. Can you look at a past villain in your life and see how their actions actually pushed you toward a strength you didn't have before? Share that macro realization with us. We look at the world right now. The wars, the news from the Middle East, the global tension, and it feels like we're in Joseph's pit. It looks like a micro-travesty. We see October 7th, we see the pain, we see the suffering, and we ask, where is the plan? But the lesson of Solomon's Treasury is that we are often too close to the grindstone to see the architecture. Just like Isaac was depressed for 20 years while the solution was being built in Egypt, we might be in the waiting period of history. The ancient wisdom tells us that these intense pains are the birth pangs of something monumental. The arrival of the Messiah, the building of the third temple, the Bais Hamikdash, and a world where good news is finally revealed to everyone. You might be going through a personal famine right now. Maybe it's your health, your finances, or your mental state. It feels like the skinny cows are eating all your fat cows. But I want you to remember Joseph. Your current problem isn't a sign that the blueprint is broken. It's a sign that the blueprint is working. You are being sent ahead to prepare for a level of influence you can't see yet. Your prison is your preparation. Your pit is your path. The divine blueprint heals your problems by giving them a reason to exist. When you find the purpose in the pain starts to lose its power over you. The greatest wealth you can ever have isn't gold. It's the perspective of the macro. It's the ability to stand in the middle of a disaster and say, I don't understand this yet, but I know who the architect is. We are living in a time where the good news is being orchestrated behind the scenes. Like Joseph, you are being moved into position. Like Isaac, your joy is going to be restored. Trust the blueprint, trust the process, and most importantly, trust that you are part of a story that ends in victory and peace for the whole world. Thank you for staying with me through this deep dive into the Treasury. If this long-form journey touched your soul or gave you a new way to look at your pit, please do the following to help us grow this community of wisdom. Like this video right now. It tells the algorithm that this macro perspective is something the world needs to see. Comment with the word governor. It tells me you've watched until the end and that you're ready to step into your own position of leadership and peace. Share this with someone who feels forgotten in their own prison right now. You might be the messenger they've been waiting for. Subscribe to Solomon's Treasury and hit that notification bell. We have so much more to uncover, so many more blueprints to share, and I want you here for every single one of them. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are a student of your destiny. God bless you. Keep looking at the macro, and I will see you in the next one.